Welcome to SAL 12-Step Creating Healthy Boundaries. Welcome back. Last week, we learned more about the 4 essential aspects of recovery. These 4 puzzle pieces are education, qualified therapy, spiritual connection supported by SAL 12-Step work, and creating healthy boundaries. We reflected on how we are implementing each puzzle piece into our current approach to recovery. We took action steps to more fully utilize all of these tools, even if it meant simply ordering a book or getting our name on a therapist's waiting list. This week, we explore the puzzle piece of healthy boundaries in greater depth. The more we practice self-awareness, the more we can see that our trauma flares up every time we feel unsafe. Our limbic system is on hyperdrive, performing its intended function to protect us from pain and danger. It is unreasonable to expect that we will be able to move through our trauma and pain if we do not create a safe place for ourselves. It is up to us to create a space where our minds and bodies can calm down, where we can find serenity and begin the process of our own healing. This may sound like a difficult task or like something we simply cannot ask from the people in our lives, but our healing depends on it. Our healthy boundaries create the space for all of the healing that will follow. And what is the alternative? Only more suffering. Pain that is not transformed will be transmitted. Whether we store our trauma in our bodies for years and eventually suffer from chronic illness and autoimmune disorders, or inadvertently pass our trauma and fear to our children, sooner or later we will have to face our pain. Why not start now, before any more damage is done? When the pain of the problem becomes greater than the pain of the solution, we are finally ready to change. It is important to understand that whether we commit ourselves to recovery or we decide to continue the status quo, either way, we are facing a painful and difficult road. But the pain of recovery leads us toward growth, healing, and self-respect. The pain of staying in our trauma or a dysfunctional relationship only brings greater and greater suffering, as well as collateral damage we cannot predict nor prevent. So with that perspective, let's dive into the challenging concept of healthy boundaries. What are healthy boundaries? Boundaries are a universal tool in emotionally healthy relationships. In her research, Brené Brown has found that wholehearted people are well-boundaried. Why? Having healthy boundaries means having a clear understanding of where we stop and another person starts. Holding boundaries implies that we value ourselves enough to uphold a basic level of self-respect. Living with boundaries frees us from resentment and victim mentality because we take ownership of our own wellness and meeting our own essential needs. We cannot expect others to read our minds or meet our expectations. Our happiness is firmly in our own sphere of responsibility, not in anyone else's. People who have a healthy sense of boundaries are able to have healthier relationships because they operate from the fundamental understanding that I am responsible for me. You are responsible for you. Healthy boundaries come from a perspective of taking ownership of our own safety, especially when dealing with an addict or abusive partner. We must be willing to take measures to create the space we need to center ourselves on God and feel His peace and guidance. The circles models are again a helpful tool as we begin to set boundaries. Our trauma reactions can help instruct us on where boundaries are needed. When we find ourselves in trauma, we can reach out to a sponsor or group member and process what we are feeling. We ask, what boundary do I need? As we practice this mindfulness one day at a time, we become very clear on what makes us feel unsafe, and we set boundaries there. At the beginning of recovery, we may find peace in worst-case scenario boundaries. These may include specific acting out behaviors that have occurred that bring us great fear, sleeplessness, and anxiety. Knowing what we will do if such worst-case scenarios occur or occur again can help us find rest, literally. The what ifs often run rampant at 4 in the morning. Boundaries should be framed as an if-then statement. If this happens, then this is what I must do. In early recovery, when boundaries are an unfamiliar tool for ourselves and our partners, it is helpful to put them in writing. Then we both have something concrete to go back to, and there is no quibbling over what we did or didn't say when boundaries are crossed. It is crucial to understand that boundaries are not a punishment, manipulation, or coercion tool. Boundaries are an act of self-love and love for others, and have much more to do with our own behavior than our partners. The purpose of the boundary is to keep ourselves in a place of sanity, no matter what somebody else chooses. This sanity is dependent upon our ability to find and feel the God of our understanding. Therefore, God must be involved in the creation of our boundaries. When we feel triggered, we detach, take space, reach out, and reach up. We go to God and ourselves and ask, what do I need to feel safe in this situation? Very often, what we need is space and time. We learn to detach with love. This means that we can calmly observe, with the help of the circles models, that our partner is not safe, or that we are in trauma. Instead of ranting, raging, lecturing, or crumbling, we can choose to stay conscious. We can recognize that they are in the addict circle, or we are in the trauma circle. When this is the case, we need to remove ourselves and do what we can to find a place of sanity, with God at our center. We might limit our communication, physical touch, even our proximity to our partner, until we have each taken recovery actions and can interact from a place of humble, honest, accountable. We reach out to a sponsor, we process our emotions, we practice self-care, and take whatever time we need to find God at our center. The following principles may be helpful as you consider creating your own boundaries. 1. Boundaries should be communicated clearly, preferably in writing, using I statements and focusing on what I need to feel safe. If you can't stop screaming at me, then I will leave the house and may stay somewhere else tonight so I can take some time to recenter myself. 2. Boundaries should be created with the guidance of God, and it is also helpful to have the insight and perspective of a sponsor or therapist. Boundaries are not a threat in the heat of the moment. If this happens again, I swear I will divorce you. Boundaries are created with God in a time of calm and reflection. God, please show me what I need to feel safe. 3. Boundaries should be stated in an if-then form. If this happens, then this is what I must do. When the boundary is crossed, I must be willing to hold to my boundary in order to find peace and safety. Often, this feels very scary at first. This is one reason why it is so important to make our boundaries when we are in a good place, with God at our center. When we sincerely feel that our boundaries have been guided by our higher power, we can hold them with confidence and surrender the outcome. It is important to remember that the disconnection or anger you may face when holding boundaries is not your fault. You would not need the boundary if your partner had not already put you in an unsafe situation. Don't allow yourself to be manipulated or made to feel like the bad guy for holding a healthy boundary. If you choose to act out, then I will need you to sleep in a different bedroom to give me space and time to process what I feel and what I need next to move forward. 4. Boundaries are not an attempt to control or manipulate another person's behavior. If you attend your weekly 12-step meeting, then I will have sex with you. This is a bad boundary. If you attend your weekly 12-step meeting, then it will help me believe that you are taking your recovery seriously. This is a much better, positive boundary. 5. Boundaries are not a punishment. What kind of boundary can I make that will really hurt him? This is a bad intention for a boundary. What do I really need to feel safe when this happens? This is a much better thought process when we're making our boundaries. 6, boundaries are not about someone else and what I think someone else needs to do. Boundaries are about me and what I need to feel safe. My sponsor said her husband goes to 2 12-step meetings each week, so I think you should do that too. This is based on fear and control and is comparing myself to others. If you proactively attend your 12-step meetings, then it will help me to feel that you are taking ownership of your own recovery. This is based on my own needs and emotions and still allows my partner to make their own decisions regarding their recovery. 7, boundaries are always ultimately boundaries for myself. Since I can never control another person's behavior, they always go back to what I must do. If you do this, then this is how I will respond to keep myself in a safe and healthy place. If you have another affair, then I will ask for a separation. This is a worst-case scenario boundary. 8, it is most effective to hold boundaries around addict behaviors and attitudes, see the circles models, rather than focusing exclusively on acting out behaviors. If you exhibit addict behaviors, then I will detach and take some time to process with God and with my sponsor. When I am ready, I will communicate what recovery actions I need to see from you before I feel safe enough to re-engage. Ultimately, as we continue to practice recovery, boundaries will increasingly come from a place of self-compassion and integrity. Our boundaries will be a manifestation of our own deepest values. What do I want for my life? What do I need to feel safe in this relationship? What am I really willing to put up with? What can my partner do that will truly help me to feel safe with him or her? What do I need to take accountability for? Boundaries mean that we are taking concrete measures to live true to who we are and what we value. It means we say no when we mean no. Only then can we truly say yes without fear or resentment. When we learn to truly trust the God of our understanding, we can accept whatever outcome our boundaries might lead to. We cannot make courageous boundaries until we trust that He really does have our back and that His wisdom and perspective infinitely exceeds our own. And yes, we cannot make healthy boundaries until we have truly surrendered the outcome of our relationship. Only when we are not desperately trying to preserve the relationship can we really make boundaries aligned with our own deepest values. Once we have made the decision to surrender with God, we can let go and allow the other person to decide whether or not they will choose recovery. This is difficult to do without a deep trust in God. Working the 12 steps is the key to building this kind of trust over time. This week, you will have the opportunity to work through several exercises and listen to several videos. All of these resources can help you understand what boundaries you need right now to establish a place of safety in your life. Your best resources as you continue to set boundaries will be your sponsor, your therapist, and the God of your own understanding. As you continue your practice of mindfulness and notice triggers as they surface this week, take the opportunity to pause and process. God, what boundary do I need right now to feel safe? As you practice this mindfulness with your triggers and anxieties, boundaries will not seem like such a mystery. They will just present themselves to you, and you will know your next right step. Next week, we will explore more about the concept of surrender. Remember to get to your 12-step meeting and reach out to your sponsor or group members. Keep working it. It works, and you are worth it. See you next week.